Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Saturday, October the 21st, 2023. We've been talking about generosity this week. Generosity, of course, is the quality of being generous. Generous, of course, as I've shared, is to be liberal in giving, to be open-handed, as opposed to be closed-handed, holding on to things for ourselves. The scripture for today is 1 Timothy 6, verses 17 through 19. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. Lee Strobel is a former reporter for the Chicago Tribune, and some years ago he was a self-professed atheist. And as the story goes, he was sitting at his desk on Christmas Eve, and it was a slow news day, and he found himself reminiscing about the Delgado family that he had featured while writing a series of articles about Chicago's neediest people a few days earlier. The Delgados were comprised of a grandmother named Perfecta and her two granddaughters, Jenny, age 13, and her sister Lydia, who was 11 years old. And he remembered how unprepared he was when he walked into their two-room apartment on the west side of Chicago for the interview. Bare halls and bare walls, no furniture, no rugs, nothing but a kitchen table and a handful of rice in the cupboards. And he learned during the interview that Jenny and Lydia only had one short-sleeve dress apiece, plus a thin gray sweater that they shared. On cold days, when the girls walked the half mile to school, one of the girls would start with the sweater and then give it to the other at the halfway mark. It was all they had. Perfecta wanted more for her granddaughters and would gladly have worked, but her severe arthritis and age made work too difficult and painful. And since it was a slow news day, Lee decided to check out a car and drive to Chicago's west side to check up on the Delgados. And when Jenny opened the door, he couldn't believe what he saw. His article on the Delgados had touched the hearts of many subscribers who responded with furniture and appliances, rugs, dozens of coats and scarves and gloves. The girls wouldn't have to share a sweater any longer. There were cartons and cartons and boxes of food everywhere. They had so much food that the cupboards and closets couldn't contain it. Someone had even donated a Christmas tree, and under it were mounds of presents and thousands of dollars in cash. Lee was astonished. But what astonished him the most was that he found Perfecta and her granddaughters doing. They were preparing to give most of it away. "Why would you give so much of this away?" Lee asked. And Perfecta responded, "Our neighbors are still in need. We can't have plenty while they have nothing. This is what Jesus would want us to do." Lee was dumbfounded. After regaining his composure, he asked Perfecta another question. He wanted to know what she and the girls thought about the generosity that was shown to them. Again, Lee was not prepared for the answer. She said, "This is wonderful. This is very good. We did nothing to deserve this. It's all a gift from God." But, she added, "It's not his greatest gift, Lee. No, we celebrate that tomorrow. Jesus." Well, Lee was speechless as he drove back to the office. In the quiet of his car, he noted a couple of observations. He had plenty, and along with it, plenty of anxiety, while the Delgados, despite their poverty, had peace. Lee had everything and yet wanted more. The Delgados had nothing and yet knew generosity. Lee had everything and yet his life was as bare as the Delgados' apartment prior to the article running. And yet the Delgados, who had nothing, were filled with hope and contentment and had a spiritual certainty. Even though Lee had so much more than the Delgados, he longed for what they had in their poverty. Well, needless to say, it changed his life. Lee went on to write a series of books about Christians. He has one that just came out in the last year or so. He eventually became a pastor himself, serving at some of the largest churches in the U.S., including Willow Creek in South Barrington, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago, and Saddleback Church, that's Rick Warren's church in Lake Forest, California. He currently serves as a teaching pastor at Woodlands Church in Texas. He has taught at the university level, and again, he is a prolific and best-selling author. But that's not the most interesting thing about Lee. What's the most interesting thing is the journey he took to get there, and the people along the way, particularly the Delgados, that showed him how poor he really was and how rich they were, and he yearned to become. Generosity. We serve a generous God who calls us to be generous in our own lives. Well, I hope you have a great day today, a great weekend. As always, we have our two services tomorrow at 9 and 11, traditional at 9, contemporary at 11, Sunday school in between at 10. And if you can't catch the live stream of either one of those or can't be here in person, then check out our YouTube channel and worship at one of those services sometime this coming week. Looking forward to being with you again. The model that or the schedule I guess I'm going to follow is that on Tuesdays there'll be a generosity devotion, and then the rest of the week will go off in a different direction. But Tuesdays until the end of the year are going to be all about generosity. Well, until Tuesday, take care. We'll see you then. Bye.